through there?
Yeah.
Does it actually sound louder?
Yeah. A little now.
Okay, this unit is called Rhetorical Analysis. It's the second of the 3 units we're doing. You just finished a narrative essay, right? Congratulations. Yay! This is the 3rd unit. First of all, we need to define a couple words. Anyone ever hear the word rhetoric before? Yes, some people have said yes. What does it mean?
Rhetoric or rhetoric?
Hey, guess what?
Is it the same?
It's the same. Say rhetoric.
Rhetoric.
Say rhetorical analysis.
Rhetorical analysis.
It's rhetoric and rhetorical. It's the same word, it's just pronounced differently depending on which form it's in. Make sense? So you've heard the word rhetoric. Anyone want to take a guess at what it means, or tell me when they've heard it before? Rhetoric. Last year's food and drug class? Oh, language arts class. And you ever?
Like the pathos, ethos, and logos thing?
Yep, that's it. For rhetoric, here's a definition I want for you. By the way, the word you don't even know this. I think this is the Greek meaning word. Doesn't really matter. The word rhetoric means the study of persuasion, the study of argument. Anything about persuasion or argument. So if I ask a rhetorical question, it's rhetorical because I don't expect an answer. I'm using it to make a point, to persuade. Does that make sense? That's why it's called a rhetorical question. You'll hear the word rhetoric a lot from politicians. They'll say things like, this isn't rhetoric. And what they're saying is, this isn't just something that I say to try to persuade you. But that is, of course, rhetoric. Make sense? So rhetoric is the study or art of persuasion, which brings us to rhetorical analysis. Do you guys know what analysis means? It's a word that you use all the time, but do you actually know what the word analysis means? What does it mean to analyze something? Yeah?
It means you like study something or like break it apart into its pieces.
Break it apart to its pieces. Study something. Analysis versus another word. I don't know if you can read this. Did I spell that right? Does that look like a real word? I tried to write ethos on the board last period and I wrote Ethan instead. This should say advocacy. I want you guys to understand the difference between analysis and advocacy. Let's say that you belong to, let's get to that example later. Let's say you're a mechanic. And let's say that you hate, I don't know, BMWs for some reason. And you're a mechanic, someone comes in with a BMW. Your job isn't to say whether or not they should have got a BMW. Your job isn't to say that BMWs are good or bad. Your job is to figure out the car. Does that make sense? And you analyze what's happening in the car, not to say the car is good or bad, but just to figure it out. Does that make sense? It wouldn't make sense to do anything else because that's not what they came in for. You're supposed to figure it out, right? Another example is, let's say that you belong to a religion that is against toast. Like your religion, every Sunday says toast is evil. Maybe some of you belong to a church like that. Anyone? Just a couple of you? Okay. Some people are like, wait, who said that? Okay. You belong to a religion that hates toast. And then you go to a class the next day at school, and they say, today we're going to analyze and study how toast is made. Are you in trouble? Your religion says don't eat toast. And then you go to school the next day, and they say, today we're going to analyze toast. Are you in trouble? Is this in conflict with your morals?
Yeah.
Why or why not? Why not?
It's kind of like the same thing, like there's a lot of religions that are against drugs and they study drugs and you're not in trouble. It's just you're learning what it is and it's kind of just helping you be informed.
Yeah. In fact, maybe it can even help you, right? Because you can understand better how to fight against toast. Drugs is a good example. You might be against heroin, but you go learn about heroin because it helps you better fight it and combat it. Does that make sense? I want you guys to understand the difference between analysis and advocacy. During this unit, we are doing analysis. We're studying how things work, not whether or not we agree with them. Does that make sense? So if I give you a piece of toast and I say analyze this, you would say, well, it's got this brown stuff on it. It looks like it has melted butter on it. It's got a crust, right? If I asked you to advocate it, you'd say, this toast is so tasty. Everyone should try it because it's the best toast ever, and I've tried all the toasts ever. You see the difference? Now that's a silly example, but in this class, during this unit, I might give you like a speech by Biden or Trump. We might watch a clip of the debate. And we are not trying to take sides here. I don't really even care for this unit, because we're doing analysis, what you believe. That's not to say I don't care about you and your opinions. It's just that's not what we're doing right now. Does that make sense? It's not, here's why Trump or Biden is right, here's why they're wrong. It's how did their argument work? We're taking it apart like a toaster. Does that make sense? So it's rhetorical analysis. And in your final essay, I shouldn't know what your opinion is on the topic. I should know how the argument works, but not whether or not you like it or agree with it or not. Does that make sense? Even though I'm saying this, someone within the sound of my voice will do the exact opposite. So just remember that. Okay, so what is rhetorical analysis then? We defined rhetoric and we defined analysis. What do you got if you put them together? Cam?
What?
What's rhetorical analysis then?
Probably like an essay about like you're informing them, you're giving them information to persuade them to choose a side, or like to persuade them, because like rhetoric is like persuasion, so.
But then you're missing the other word, which is analysis.
Well,
Yeah? Sorry, she's tag teaming you. Yeah.
Is it just a non-biased essay?
Yep, and what are you trying to study in this non-biased essay?
Is it like studying how someone tries to persuade someone else?
Exactly. You're studying how someone is persuading somebody else. You're explaining how persuasion works. So you're explaining how the cake is made, not whether or not the cake tastes good. Does that make sense? So we're thinking very abstractly. We are not trying to persuade someone that this thing is right or wrong. We're not taking a side. We're just saying, here is how it works. Make sense? Did you write something down for that? Awesome. You guys know who Aristotle is, right? It doesn't really matter who he is, but it's worth just knowing his name because we're going to be using some of his ideas. Who's Aristotle? Somebody? Yes, he's a Greek philosopher. He lived around 300 BC. And what you should write for him besides that is something like, he formalized the study of persuasion. Yeah, sorry, birthday boy. He formalized the study of persuasion. I'd say he invented it, but that doesn't really make sense. He was the first person to think, or maybe not the first, but the best first person to say, how does it work? How does persuasion work? Why is this person more persuasive than that person? What is it about what they're saying that makes them more persuasive? And he wanted to figure it out. In chemistry class, you learned there's like, what, 7 elements? How many elements are there on the periodic table? 8?
It depends on if you're talking
9, 10?
real or theoretical.
How many elements are there? 10?
Dude, there's like 50.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's like 100 and something, right? And so in chemistry, all these elements are the building blocks for everything in the planet, in the universe, right? So for us, for persuasion, Aristotle says there's 3. There's 3 elements. There's 3 things that combine to make all persuasion. And some combination of these things is behind every argument. Does that make sense? And these are the 3 things that you learned probably last year or the year before, and you'll probably start telling me them now. What are they? Ethos is one of them, yeah. I don't speak Greek, so I don't know how to pronounce it. Your guess is as good as mine. I say ethos just because I do. You can say ethos. Ethos is one. What else?
Pathos.
Yeah, I say pathos. Again, I don't know why. It doesn't really matter. And we need one more. Yeah, no, it's fine. Logos. Do these look familiar to any of you? Give me a grunt if they're familiar. Hey, that was awesome. Let's talk about what they are. Someone tell me what ethos is. Yeah.
Appeal to your emotions.
You're very close, except for you got the wrong
Oh,
one.
like that's half. Ethos
Yeah.
is-
Well, what's pathos?
Oh, the appeal to emotion.
Good. I like that you said the word appeal. That's very important. Don't say it's using emotion. It's appealing to emotion. If I'm trying to convince you to buy a car and I say, buy this car or else my family will starve, what am I doing? I'm appealing to your... But we need to be more specific. Not just an emotion. What emotion am I appealing to? Buy this car or else my family will starve. I'm appealing to your guilt, right? Buy this car because it's cool and everyone will like you. And it's the best car.
Not
You said you could do this.
Hey, you voice activated it. I
If
wasn't
I
talking.
say, buy this car or else, because then you'll be cool and everyone will like you. What emotion is that? Pride. And you should make a note of this. In your own essays and in your own arguments when we use pathos, don't just say they appeal to emotion. Be specific. You know there's a lot of emotions, right? There's more than one. There's like maybe 3. Sleepy, hungry, and sad. Those are the 3 emotions. But there's more emotions than that, right? Okay. So don't just say emotion, that's too broad, be more specific. Ethos or logos, who knows one of them? Yeah.
Logos is logic.
But it's not just logic, it's a,
An appeal to logic.
there you go, appeal to logic. Appeal is an important word here. It doesn't mean that your argument's logical, because you might be bad at logic and it not be logical, but it means that your audience thinks it's logical. Does that make sense? They might not understand math, and so I say, guys, 2 plus 2 equals 7, and if you don't understand math, you might be persuaded by that, right? So it's appealing to logic, which is different than actually being logical. And this is, I think, why conspiracy theories work, because they seem so logical, but they're actually not. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's an appeal to logic. And finally, anyone want to take a stab at ethos?
It's an appeal to like the trust, like setting yourself up.
I'm going to call it an appeal to
Like also ethics, like ethicalness, right?
kind of, I'm trying to be nice, kind of. Yeah?
Credibility.
We're going to call it character. Now, credibility and what was the other one you said? Trust. Those are aspects of character. This is who you are. For some reason, who you are matters. If I'm watching TV and I see Ryan Reynolds, you know who he is, he played Deadpool, right? If I see Ryan Reynolds and he's in a gin commercial for aviation gin, do I buy the gin because I think Ryan Reynolds is trustworthy? He may or may not be, but is that why it persuades me? No, it persuades me because he's handsome, he's cool, and I want to buy into that image. Does that make sense? So it's about who the person is. And when an athlete is like supporting something, they're not doing it because we trust them. They're doing it because there's something about their character that appeals to us. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah, so when you're writing it though, do you appeal to like the audience's ethos or like
Your own or someone else's.
Okay.
So I would say that aviation gin commercials use Ryan Reynolds as an ethos appeal.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or you could do it yourself. Like I am using my ethos as a really hip teacher to make my teaching cool. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So it can be, and if I don't have enough ethos, I can use someone else's. I'm not hip enough, so I bring in like, I don't know, Carolyn Goff because she's hipper than me, and I use her credibility. Does that make sense? And that's why they use spokespeople, because they don't have their own ethos. Some brands do. Some brands don't need spokespeople because they already have such a cool brand established. Like I don't even know if Coke has had a spokesperson in a very long time. I don't know. Does Nike really even need one? They use them, but they don't really need them. Does that make sense? So if you don't have your own ethos, then you borrow it from others, right? Like Red Bull, they have these people doing their Red Bull games or whatever, and it's supposed to build this character of like energy and, I don't know, danger, right? They're trying to build a certain personality. And that's what this is an appeal to. Either your own or you're borrowing someone else's. We think about it most with credibility, like here's a scientist and I'm using their science to make me look more credible, right? But that's just one aspect of it. You can borrow anything from someone else. Make sense? Those are the 3 building blocks, the 3 atoms for persuasion according to Aristotle. And according to Aristotle, some combination of this is behind every single argument. And it's not ever going to be perfectly balanced because that's not the way you actually communicate. Sometimes you only need to use pathos. Sometimes you only need to use logos. Depending on your audience and what you're trying to communicate, that ratio changes. Make sense? Okay, are you guys ready for the next thing?
Yes.
Thank you. you guys are really in for a treat because you're going to draw a triangle. And I know how much teens love triangles. Right?
Not as much as the pie chart, but
That's like my favorite thing in the world, to say that teenagers love pie charts. But triangles is a close second, I think, because they have 3 points. Yeah, that's a good triangle. Oh, I should have asked what color you want. Did someone say blue? Yeah. Okay, blue it is. Birthday boy. Blue for the birthday boy. Okay. Up here, write author. On one side of the triangle, write audience, not side point. On the other point, write text. In the middle, write medium. So before I explain this, let me rewind and say the whole point of this unit is to learn how to analyze arguments. And using the 3 appeals is one way to analyze arguments. It's like one set of tools. The rhetorical triangle is like another set of tools you can use to analyze rhetoric, right? You can use a wrench or a, what else can you use? Anyways, you can just use different tools to do the same job. Make sense? And they're going to overlap, and that's fine. So, author. Author refers to, let's get some over. So, author refers to how the speaker's identity influences the message. So, if I write on the board, let's write it in black just for kicks. There. I write on the board, happy birthday. Now, who's the author of this? If I write on the board, happy birthday, who's the author?
you.
Good, that was a hard question, right? Now, if someone else wrote it, like let's say Miss Goff came running in the room and wrote this on the board, would that change how you receive the message? Why?
Because it comes from a different person.
But like, how would coming from Miss Goff be different than coming from me? For you personally?
I don't know.
Or is it just the same? The principal wished me a happy birthday, or Mr. Gunther wished me a happy birthday.
Yeah.
What if LeBron James walked in the room and wrote this on the board?
Yeah, I guess.
What if Jesus Christ opened up a hole in the ceiling and came down, took the Sharpie, and wrote happy birthday on the board? Would that change it?
Yeah.
Right? And then what if Satan opened up the portal from hell and wrote happy birthday? Would that change it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see that obviously the message changes based on the author, right? Okay, that is what author talks about. Audience. Now, if I write this on the board for you, that would mean something. But what if this is my birthday present to, like, I don't know, my best friend in the whole world? Is this like how I should wish happy birthday to them? They might be a little let down or upset about that, right? Does that make sense? And then text is what the message actually is, like what the words actually are. Can I say this differently? How else can you say happy birthday? Is there another way to say it?
Happiest day of birth.
Yeah. I like that. Happiest day of birth. That's what that says, right?
Yeah.
And if I wrote that instead, would that change it? Yeah, you'd be like, that's weird. Why do you say it like that? So it's pretty obvious how like changing the text can change the meaning of it. This is stuff that we all know, and in extreme examples we can understand, like if it's Jesus Christ or Miss Goff. So I don't mean to be sacrilegious, it's just I needed to go to an extreme example to drive the point home, right? But you can understand it in that extreme case. It's harder when it's like, how is it different if it's coming from Trump or from Biden? Right? Like when it gets to sound like where they're a little more similar, it's harder to parse out why that means something different. Does that make sense? Or why I might talk one way to this class, but different to like my sophomores, and how my audience changes how I speak. Does that make sense? Okay. Lastly is my favorite part of the triangle, the medium. Anybody in here an artist? No one's an artist? You're an artist? Okay, what's your medium? There you go. She didn't say paint. She didn't say paintbrush. She said watercolor. Someone else might be a painter and they would say oil paint. Someone else might be a painter and they might say acrylic, right? So this gives us a really easy definition of medium. What is medium? For her, it's watercolor. For me, it's oil paint. Anyone have an idea? For someone else, it's acrylic paint. Yeah.
It's what you use to leave a message for us.
Yeah, it's the physical form the message takes. The physical form. This is extremely important because I can communicate happy birthday through any number of mediums. I can wish happy birthday through any number of mediums. I can write it on the board with a Sharpie. I can scream it, happy birthday! I can lean close and whisper it, which I won't do because of COVID. I can write it on the board with a Sharpie. I can write it on, yeah. There's a Sharpie for you. Did anybody feel something when I wrote on the board with this?
That like,
Yeah, and if you felt something, you know the power of medium. This is both black marker, right? But you know that this means something different than that. Does that make sense? And you all know this because when you answer back to a dance, you think really hard about how to say yes, right? You don't just go up to them in the hall and say yes. You spell out yes in Skittles on their driveway, or you spell out yes by spilling gasoline on their front lawn and setting on fire, or you text it to them. And each way you say yes communicates something different, right? Let's say Pete's allergic, can I call you Pete because it's your birthday? Let's say Pete's allergic to peanuts and it makes him die, and I know this, and I say yes, spelled out in peanuts. Right? Like that, but what if it's his favorite food in the whole world? It means something different, right? So all these things start to combine. My awareness of him helps me choose what to say and what form it should take, and all of this combines. Does that make sense? So that is the rhetorical triangle. Got it? I know this is a lot of concepts, and right now it might seem kind of fuzzy, but we'll be hitting this hard over the next couple of weeks. So if you kind of get the basics of it right now, you're okay. Last up on this piece of paper is the rhetorical analysis essay prompt. We can use these tools of rhetorical analysis to analyze anything. We could analyze speeches, novels, books, talks, articles, analyze anything. No matter what we analyze, we're asking the same question. Here it is. Write it down for number 6. What is the author's purpose? And what strategies do they use to achieve their purpose? What is the author's purpose? And what strategies do they use to achieve their purpose? You need it one more time? What is the author's purpose? And what strategies do they use to achieve their purpose? We can ask that question about anything, and we can use all of these tools to answer that question. Does that make sense? Doesn't matter what I put in front of you. It could be a poster, it could be a commercial, it could be like an academic article. The question will be the same. What's their purpose? What strategies do they use? Make sense? This will be the final essay prompt. At the end of the unit, I will give you something. I don't know what it's going to be because I pick a new thing every year. Might be a speech, might be an article, probably be something political because it's an election year, and I'll give it to you and I'll hand it out to you and I'll say, what's their purpose and what strategies do they use to achieve their purpose? And all we're going to be doing up until the time of that essay is practicing doing that. Sound okay? Yeah.
Is it going to be timed?
I've gone back and forth with that. I've done timed writing, and sometimes that's fun. I don't know. I've done it different ways. I like to keep it fresh for me. I like timed writing because then we can just get it done, and then you don't have to stress out about it. So I always kind of lean towards it for this prompt, because then also you can't talk about it with other people, and you can come up with your own ideas. Make sense? So, I don't know. Probably, but maybe not. So that is the prompt. When I first started teaching this unit, I had like a lot of like boring articles that we'd pass out and analyze, and then I realized, hey, it doesn't have to be this. We can analyze anything. So this year, we're going to analyze something a little different. I'm going to try to make this sound as boring as I can. I found a video recording of a simulation of a workplace environment where different individuals in the workplace seek to persuade one another of things. Does that sound boring enough? Yeah, we're going to watch an episode of The Office.
oh my, I am.
You can stop recording.